Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the DanJohnUniversity.com podcast. I'm Dan John, and this is episode 272. Wow, that's a lot of episodes. What makes the episodes work is your questions. If you have questions, please send them to the podcast. And the address is podcast@DanJohnUniversity.com. Podcast@DanJohnUniversity.com. I sit down every week, I answer your questions, and I got to tell you, this week, there's some fun questions, and I'm looking forward to answer them. Had to actually work a little bit this week because there's some new ones and good ones. So let's get started with a young person named John. What a lovely name. Okay. Thank you for your books and podcasts. They have been life-changing for me. Well, thank you, John. I've lost over 30 pounds since December 2023. Wow, that's less than, well, that's, while I'm answering this, that's really good. Using Easy Strength, the Armor Building Complex, and improved diet, and thanks to you. Thank you. I have a carport that I've converted into a home gym with kettlebell, sandbags, suspension trainer, and free weights that I use for the Easy Strength, Armor Building Complex, and walk ruck after workouts 4 to 5 times a week. Folks, there's the formula, huh? Home gym, do the work, go for a walk or ruck after. There's the secret, okay? On the occasions when it is rainy for a few days, I can still lift in the carport, but may not be able to walk ruck due to storms. Yeah, I know the feeling. We've stopped walking in the when the snow's bad, mostly because it's just real hard. You're trying to go out for a ruck or a walk, and with the snow and the ice. And the way people drive here in Utah, you take your life in your hands, and I actually mean that. Do you have any recommendations for those days? Yes, I do. Should I just do extra kettlebell swings, or do you have other ideas to get some zone 2 cardio without being able to take a walk? John, yeah, I do. In fact, I'm going to tell you what we do here at the Institute. We do the 30-30 for 30 workout. Now, I learned this from my friend in Germany, Gernot, who's just a great man, and he uses it in his gyms, and I love the idea. So you do an exercise for 30 seconds, then you take 30 seconds off for 30 minutes. And it doesn't sound like much, but, and I would shift things around a little bit. Let me just give you with the equipment you have, okay? Well, here's an idea. Okay, the first 30 seconds, let's have you do kettlebell swings. Then you rest for 30 seconds. On the next minute at the top, when you start your next, maybe do push-ups or presses, a push exercise. 30 seconds, you rest for 30 seconds, you start again. You can probably come back to swings. This is going to be a hard workout. 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. You've done a push, so do a pull. Do something with your suspension trainer. The next round would be swings. The next round might be goblet squats, push, pull, or you're doing the hinge with the swings. Push, pull, squat, loaded carry. For the loaded carries, here you go. Kettlebell press, suspension trainer, TYI, whatever you like. Goblet squats, march in place suitcase carries. If you alternate those with swings, that's going to be 7.5 minutes of swings and 7.5 minutes of strength exercises in a 30-minute period, because you have that 30-second rest every time. And when I say something like that out loud, a lot of people are like, that's not very hard. When you do it, it's exhausting. If it's multiple times a week, another thing you can do is so if you're doing the swing push, swing pull, swing squat, swing march in place, that's going to be tough. Maybe the next day you can do something like 30 seconds of a mobility movement, 30 seconds rest, 30 seconds of mobility movement, 30 seconds rest. That is a program. Mike Warren Brown put one of those together, and it's pretty good. It doesn't seem like much, but you get on the floor and you do the butterfly stretch. Or you stand up and you do the ragdoll stretch. The names are important. And then after that, for 30 seconds, you just kind of shake out and relax. So you can do a hard workout, the swings and the fundamental human workout. The next day you could do the tonic, the mobility movements. You could also, if you really want to push it, you could do something as simple as, I like this marching in place suitcase carry, okay? So for 30 seconds, you could do march in place left hand carry, rest 30 seconds, and then you could do, I don't know, a calisthenic or a sandbag lift or whatever you'd like to do. Next time around, march in place, right hand suitcase carry, and you could intermix the march in place suitcase carries with strength exercises. And again, at the end of the 30 minutes, you've had 7.5 minutes of marching in place, which is pretty good, and 7.5 minutes of strength work, and that's not a bad workout. If you look up 30-30 for 30 with my name, you'll find a series of articles over on ontargetpublishingbooks.com, otpbooks.com. And I wrote this for personal trainers who are working with large groups, but it really works good when you train by yourself. One little warning note, if you decide to do the 30-30 for 30, John, is that you do get, you kind of get lost in the time. So I use a clock, an old school, an analog clock. Someone told me the other day, that's what it's called. Like, oh, okay. But it's got a second hand. And, I use that. So when it hits the 12 on the second hand, I start. When it hits a 6, I stop. I rest until it comes back to the 12. I would also have maybe, and you don't need much. I mean, a little card about this big would be fine. And just kind of the order in which you do things. You could check the box after every round. Or if you decide just to do 5 things, you would just go almost like a Conga line, dun, 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 dun. You're going to go push, pull, squat, march, push, pull, and that would work out pretty well too. But boy, you are doing a lot of good stuff, and I'm impressed. And John, I'm really 30 pounds, and obviously that'd be just over half a year when you sent the question in. That is really good work, and keep it up. And I guess that's my goal for you, is to keep on keeping on. Okay, thank you. Great question, and a good start to this week's podcast. We have a question from David. Now that's a lovely name, means commander. Over the past 2 months, I have helped a friend through strength. When he started, he was nervous picking up a 35-pound kettlebell off the floor. Okay, 2 months later, he can press the 50 with each hand and can do farmer walks with the 50 in hand. Last week, he deadlifted 185. He is similar age and height and recently went from 320 pounds down to 280, but a larger portion of his body weight, of the weight was body fat. Good job. This makes doing a kettlebell swing very difficult for him. Makes sense. I have tried to explain that his forearm should make contact with his inner thighs, but it seems like the kettlebell is a little close to his sensitive places than it should be due to his body shape. Can someone like him learn to kettlebell swing, or is it a lost cause? Folks, one of my issues with the kettlebell swing is that we often propel people into that exercise without nearly enough progressions. So David, there's 2 exercises I'd like you to start with. The first is the very simple hip thrust. It can be done with nothing. He would lay down the ground. I like the palms pointed to the ceiling because I think this position is important. You bring the feet up and you go into the glute bridge. You raise your hips up and you squeeze. You bring them back down. The hip thrust is the kettlebell swing position. It's a hinge. And then you would match that, and I know sometimes those who are driving around listening to it on the various audio only, I'm sure these kinds of questions are hard, but the other one that I go along with it is called the vertical plank. So hip thrusts, vertical plank. And the vertical plank is you find something, actually my desktop right now is just about perfect, basically where your xiphoid process is about that height. And if it's my desk, you're going to pull down as hard as you can. You can use ropes, you can use stretchy bands, you can use weight machines, those the racks, and just, squeeze your hands and pull down. But the top of the swing should be the vertical swing position. Remember, I am pulling down, which drives the top of my head up. It engages my ab wall, makes my glutes fire, it makes my lats fire. It is how you want to finish. If you feel comfortable, and I would do, by the way, you can do those 2 exercises the rest of your life, and there's great value. I do hip thrusts and clamshells as part of my Olympic lifting warm-up, and I just find them amazing part of my warm-up, that and original strength and hanging from the bar and sitting the bottom goblet squat, and I'm ready to go usually. After that, I invented an exercise years ago. It's on my site here. You can look it up. The Bulgarian goat bag swing. Basically, you put, and it works great with sandbags. You can do it with plates. You can do it with kettlebells. If you do it with kettlebells, hold the horns in the curl grip. So, and then you stick the weight into your belly, which engages the ab wall, and you're going to do the hinge with the goat, and you're going to do the hinge, the swing, with the weight right here. The hip thrust, vertical plank, and the Bulgarian goat bag swing might be all your friend ever needs. In fact, your concerns are interesting here, and I like, you're very kind to your friend, and I appreciate it, but I do think there are some, I mean, not everybody can swing perfectly just because of 1,000 reasons. But in a situation like this where the person is trending down on weight, let's keep encouraging them. I think the hip thrust, and the other thing about the hip thrust, and this is something I try to remind people in my inner circle about, is you've got to get down on the floor to do it. And of course, getting up off the floor, if you have heart rate monitors on, that's when you really see a jump in your heart rate, just getting up and down off the floor. So there's a hidden benefit in doing the hip thrust, is you get up and down off the ground. I used to joke about the 3 grandmas I used to train with. They sounded like sailors every time I said it was time for hip thrusts, because they hated getting up and down off the ground. But I realized that for their personal safety, because, at my age, the most dangerous thing in the house is the floor, that there was great value in practicing getting up and down off the ground. So, David, you're a good friend. Hip thrust, vertical plank, move over to the Bulgarian goat bag swing. Just look at the video I made. And I think this is a good idea. And it's nice to have someone like you in one's life. So thank you. And really, in a broader sense, to all of our listeners who kind of step out and help friends, not just moving couches and not just, that kind of thing, but help them on their fitness journey. I think it's wonderful. And thank you all, because you make a difference. And David, you're making a difference. So thank you. Well, we have a question from Quinn. I have been running your armor building formula and I love it. Well, good. Thank you. It's definitely going to be a staple for me going forward. And oddly enough, I feel overall fitter and less beat down than when I was doing high intensity barbell programs. Yeah, I can understand that. That said, I do miss barbells and I don't want to lose all my top end strength I've spent years developing. I understand that. How do you feel about alternating, say, 2 to 3 months of armor building and 2 to 3 months of easy strength and just repeating that indefinitely? Well, before I even finish, I think if you read the book Armor Building Formula, you find it at armorbuildingformula.com, you'll find that program, basically, as you just said, it is in there. I like this idea. I would say, you're going to, and for most of the listeners, probably the armor building complex, the armor building formula, you top out at about 2 months. And with easy strength, for most people, I mean, you can keep doing it longer, but really 2 months, that's about what the 40 days is, 8 weeks. 2 months is good, especially if you're doing it the way you're going to do it. The ABF followed by easy strength, followed by the ABF, easy strength. If you keep good notes, you should really get a window into how you recover and how much variety you need. A lot of our listeners don't need a lot of variety. And then a lot of our listeners need a ton of it. And I never know what kind of person you are. I mean, no matter, even when I find a perfect program, within about 2 weeks, I'm already changing 1 or 2 things, which is an interesting, and I think it's true about a lot of us. And now we'll come to the last question. Any other approaches you recommend to keeping some pure strength work while keeping armor building a staple? Yeah. Well, in the book Armor Building Formula, available at armorbuildingformula.com, I had a little note to say that. There's a program at the end where you mix easy strength with the ABC Armor Building Complex. One of the things about the Armor Building Complex and the barbell variations that I have in the book is that complexes are different, man. They're just, I've been doing them a long time. Complexes were what we did at Southwood Junior High when we were short on time. The coach would just take our basic exercises, the power clean, the military, and the front squat, and we'd run those together in a complex. And I always noticed when I did them that there's this systemic change in my entire system. Systemic is when something comes up through the roots and it just, makes a difference for everything. So complexes for me have always been that thing that challenges me, but it's not like, it is. It's my heart rate. It's my work capacity. It's my local strength. It's my power. It's all those things. But it's done in such a way that, like when you're doing sets of 8 in a complex and you're to your 5th exercise and you start something fresh, like front squats. I haven't done front squats yet, but you're exhausted. And once you start going, you're tired, but you're still going. I think there's something magic about complexes. So can you get stronger doing the armor building complex? Yes. Can you get stronger doing the barbell complexes? Yes. And when you dose those with easy strength, you get a chance to test whether that theory is true or not. And I think it is. That's a fun question, Quinn. I like your idea, but I would say think 2 months of the armor building formula and 2 months of easy strength, especially once you've kind of gone through the initial phases of those, the learning steps. And I think you'll find a lot of fun in that. At the end of a year, you're going to be doing 6 months of ABF and 6 months of easy strength. I mean, if you control your, you can control your caloric intake and get some sleep and go for some walks, good things are going to happen. Thank you. Great question. Okay. We have a question from Dimitri. I'm 47 years old and very out of shape. Interesting you say that. Being at 47, in my athletic career, 47 was the best year of my career. I finally had time again. I finally had some resources, and I was getting some great coaching. I recently started doing easy strength 4 days a week, doing goblet squats with a 55-pound kettlebell, dips, which is interesting when you say you're out of shape and you're doing dips. That's impressive. Ring rows, and farmer carries with 55 and 35-pound dumbbells, bells, he says. It feels amazing to do a workout in just 15 to 20 minutes, including warm-up. My question is, does it make more sense for me to just continue to progress with easy strength for a good while, or would it be better to stay with it for 8 to 12 weeks and then switch to something like ABC bit and then come back? I recently saw your video on ABC with one bell, and it seems like something I could do. Well, I don't know if you know my easy strength program called Easy Strength for Fat Loss, but I'll just give it to you right now, Dimitri. Ideally, you get a great night's sleep. Ideally, you don't eat when you first get up. You drink a lot of coffee. I was told you can also take caffeine tablets, but those really mess with my tummy. Of course, moderation is not my middle name. Great night's sleep. Don't eat when you get up. Drink some coffee. You would do your easy strength workout, Dimitri, and then you'd go for a walk, a half an hour, 45 minutes. Rusty Moore explained to me that, the lifting frees up the free fatty acids. The coffee frees up the free fatty acids. The fasting frees up the free fatty acids. And then the sleep, because you've been fasting, frees up the free fatty acids. And then when you walk, it's like little Pac-Mans. Your body, takes care of business. The least scientific thing I've ever said in my life. But I think the thing I would do before you move over the armor building formula which will down the line be a good idea for you, I would really push this walk for a bit. Walking is gold. It is marvelous. Mike and I were walking today, and I mean, I had on my little ruck vest, and I had my heavy hands, and I was letting my arms swing, and I could feel I just felt myself kind of feeling better as I went, like Tim Anderson always says, look good, feel good, move good. And I think when I move good, I feel good. Yeah. I would consider adding that. Now, I do have the book, danjohnuniversity.com/bookstore, Easy Strength for Fat Loss, but really I've summed most of it to you. There's a few other ideas that work well too, but I would suggest you moving in that direction. Give yourself maybe 2 months. So now, it always comes up, what if I can't, you got work. Can you get up an hour earlier and get your workout in before you got to go to work? Can you do it in the afternoon? Yes, of course you can, but don't break your fast when it's appropriate, and do easy strength, but go for the walk or whatever. Yeah, you can make anything work if you try. Well, if you strive, you can get anything done, really. I like your idea. I'm very happy to hear that you have. It seems like your own home gym, and the fact that you're doing dips and ring rows and farmer carries, goblet squats, I think that's a good program, and I would stick with it. Those are great choices for easy strength for fat loss. Just add that walk in after. And when I do the Olympic lifting variation, I swap my shoes out and I do my clean and presses. I don't need my lifting boots on for those, so that when I drop that last weight, out the door I go. And I think there's value to that. So thank you, and it's good for you. And let me know how it goes, okay? I hope this was good advice. Okay, we got a question from Neil. In an old article, you mentioned the efficacy of dead stop front squats for curing sticking points in Olympic lifting. Experimenting with this exercise eventually led me to a North American male 2 dead stop bench presses. Does this move have any value in your experience, or am I wasting my time with it? So one of the things, first off, if you're going to do bench presses, dead stop style, folks, dead stop, real quick. You find a sticking point in a lift, and then you put the bar exactly at that spot. So if you're missing your bench presses right here, you would set up a rack or whatever you have to right here, and then squeeze that bar off at that sticking point. For me, I just had to train my nervous system and my sticking point, Dave Turner measured it, was exactly 34 inches off the ground is where I missed my front squats. So we put up, it wasn't very high-tech, sawhorses that were 34 inches at the height. I put the bar on there, and I couldn't stand up. My first workout, I had to use 135 pounds to stand up there. And it is a true story. 6 weeks later, I did 365 from that post, because my nervous system needed to be taught what my sticking point was. I'd always bounce through it. You'll notice a lot of people, gym lifters, if they do a dead stop and the bar is here, just an inch or so off the chest, they probably can't lift at all, because a lot of people use that recoil to bounce right through that sticking pot. Will it help your bench? Yeah, I think it will. You probably have about 6 weeks you can use it. And then after that, with isometrics of all kind, I've never really gotten much, either as a coach or myself as an athlete. I've never gotten much after about 6 weeks. Interesting, when I talked to Dick Smith, who was one of the guys at York Barbell when functional isometric contraction exploded, he told me the same thing. It works, but you have to understand that you have a 6 week. Now, so his idea was, and this is something you might want to try, you do 6 weeks with, the bar 1 inch off the chest, 6 weeks with the bar 1 inch from lockout. You'll use a lot of weight there. 6 weeks, 3 inches off the chest, 6 weeks, 4 or 5 inches from the lockout, and just see how that goes. Big fan of them. I know a lot of people don't use them anymore. And obviously I don't use them very often anymore because I I got what I needed out of the exercise. And I do some drills with my throwers where we use the dead stop principle. That is true. But that's a sniper shot issue. That is like, we're stalling, we're stuck at a point, and this will help. So great question. I think it'll be a lot of fun for you to do it, and let me know. I'd like to find out if this helps you. All right. Got a real short question from Neil, and I'm going to have a real short answer after that, okay? Neil says, what are some standards for flexibility and mobility that if achieved, I can de-emphasize this in my training? Neil, and this would be for everybody, I would put mobility especially, and generally it's defined as the free movement of, around the joints. Flexibility can be a neurological trick. The thing about mobility is the same thing that we have with lean body mass. It seems that your body conspires, well, maybe not. Modern living conspires to make your lean body mass go in the wrong direction. Modern living makes your mobility, conspires to make your mobility go in the wrong direction. I mean, I work with people who say, I used to be able to do splits and can't do splits anymore. In my athletic career, there was a time where there was a variation of the split I could do, but with only one leg forward. I think it's this one, but doing the splits, I've seen people work themselves into a split over months, and it doesn't always stick, and there's no value. So for me, and Neil, this is important, I always do this when I talk about mobility. I want your thumb mobility to be outstanding all the way into your hundreds, until you're 178, and then I don't care. Your finger mobility, your wrist mobility. There is a bit of elbow mobility. It's nice to have, obviously, the big joints like the shoulders and our whole spinal column, the hips and all that other stuff need that kind of mobility. It's going to be an ongoing process, and it's a use it or lose it thing. Mobility and lean body mass and strength are use it or lose it. Endurance is that way too, I guess. And so I would just recommend for you, Neil, and any other listener, always keep mobility into your program. I use original strength, and it's true, I do a lot more of that than I used to, because, I'm 67 and my life is conspiring to make me stiffer in my joints. So I combat that with more mobility work. Thank you. Fun question, and I hope I answered it. But if you can touch your toes today and then, I don't know, get into an auto accident, it might take years to rebuild that. So just lean body mass and mobility, just keep fighting the good fight with those two things. Thank you. Josh asked a question that I think I'm no expert on it, Josh, but I think I can help you. He goes, just wanted to know your opinion on Hyrox as a sport and training style, and whether you think you could suitably prepare for it with mainly kettlebells. Okay, Hyrox, for those, that's Hyrox. Hyrox is a cool contest that's been going on in Europe. I don't know if it's in the States yet. I don't know. But basically, it breaks out, and I'm going to give the general one that I looked at and I saw. This is the general one. You run 1,000 meters. So if you go to a high school, if you go to a track, that's 2.5 laps, okay? I think I'm right. Yeah. And then you do a little circuit, or you do a little test. You do on the websites they talk about, it could be ski erg, sled pushes, burpees, broad jumps, rowing, farmer's carry, sandbag lunges, and wall balls. So kind of that family of things we saw in the last 20 years that people like to measure. And you can do it as teams. The thing I do like about, and the way they organized it, is that the groups start, they stagger the starts. So there are people running almost constantly. So, like me, I'm doing my first one. I've never seen the event before. There's no person way out ahead of me, taking first place. It is possible that, I'm running my last 1,000K, and the winner maybe zips past me, but it's only from here to there. I like that. You can also do teams too, and I think it's a wonderful idea. Okay, couple things. When you do talk to people who know what they're talking about with this sport, and I wouldn't be one of them, there is an emphasis on making sure you have your squat locked down, your push press locked down, and your reverse lunge locked down, because a lot of the events, wall ball is a push press with a med ball, and the med ball takes off. To me, when you have something like sleds and farmer walks and ski erg in a system, plus all that running, I mean, it's 8K if you do it all by yourself. Mixing that with squats or sleds, you're going to need a certain kind of fitness. The first thing I would recommend is get yourself used to running followed by a physical act. Now, I went to Skyline College, and one of the cool things about Skyline in the 1970s, Skyline was one of the first places, I think in the United States, to have something called a PAR course. And what a PAR course is, and I love them, I still think they're one of the best ways to train, is that you go to the first station, and it is, jump, you jump over this thing, and there's little standers on the stuff, 15 times. Then you run to the next station, and maybe it's a incline, decline, sit up. Next station is pull-ups, and you run. The PAR course will prepare, I think the PAR course idea is what you got to keep in the back of your mind preparing for these Hyrox events. So you've got to get used to combining running with a change and something high intensity, something, well, I mean, if the station is push press and you got to, I don't know, push press 50 kilos 20 times, that's a huge jump. And that's a huge change in what you're being asked to do. So the first thing I would do if you're training, and I love your idea about using kettlebells, is the first thing I do is I put your kettlebells in your car, and I always use my seat belts to hold them. Go to a place, a park, a beach, a track, somewhere, and I would do loops. So I would get used to, I would run, grab the bells, do double front squats. Okay, this is just starting. Put the bells down, run, make a loop so you can see your kettlebells and no one steals them. Come back and do push jerks, push presses. Run, come back and do these reverse lunges. Run, come back. And get used to doing run, kettlebell, run, kettlebell. Remember, folks, Josh's question specifically was, could you prepare with it with mainly kettlebells? My thought is yes. Now, if you're in a gym setting, you could do other things. You could do treadmill, kettlebell. You could row, kettlebell. You could ski erg, kettlebell, ski erg. Or you could either march in place or run in place, depending on what you got. If it's weather related, you're going to have to do what you got to do. But the idea of running and building up those runs with the lifting in between, I love the idea how your body's going to have to, kind of change gears a lot. And I think, when I talk about coaching American football and some other things in my life, I'm always trying to explain gear changes. It's like, you don't just run, you run and then you hit somebody. You run and you get hit. You run, rugby, it's, you might be the fastest person on the field, but if someone's got a shot at you, they hit you. It changes. So run, do a kettlebell movement. Run, do another kettlebell movement. Run, do another kettlebell movement. I think you can. Again, you're going to have to focus on the squat, the lunge, the push stuff. But honestly, kettlebell swings might have some value. Heck, I even think in this situation, Turkish get-ups would be really entertaining because, you run, you come in tired, you're breathing hard, and then you have to really, kind of control yourself and get those Turkish get-ups. So my answer would be, yeah, I think you can. And the other thing I want to say about kettlebells that might be ignored by many, but the first time I met actual kettlebellers, and one of them was Steve Maxwell, and I asked Steve, if you had to get rid of kettlebells, what would you miss? And Steve told me I would miss the grip work it gives me. Anytime you do any of these events that involves pull-ups, climbing, monkey bars, rope climbing, getting over walls or whatever, the Spartan races I'm thinking of mostly, your grip strength is really crucial. So one of the nice things about doing kettlebell swings, kettlebell snatches, the whole ballistic family is it does give that grip a lot of work. So when you decide to bring the bells out, suitcase carry, farmer walk your bells out there, get your work in, farmer walk your bells back. Try to do some farmer walks exhausted sometime. And over time, as you build up the mileage, the kilometer midge, so you get yourself ready for that. So it would be 8,000 kilometers in the race. Build yourself up to that 8. Build yourself up to be able to train in between each of those rounds. I think good things are going to happen. And from what I've seen from Hyrox, I would love to see it in here in the States. It's exciting, and I hope it makes sense, my answer. So I'm sure you can train with kettlebells, and I think there's some real value to it. The grip training, the ability to take it out to a park. I mean, it's so easy to carry kettlebells out to a training facility versus, barbells and a squat rack and a bench. Yeah, I like this. And good luck if you try to do it, okay? I enjoyed that. Thank you. So Oscar asked a question. When increasing weight in easy strength, it seems 10 pounds for upper body and 20 pounds, page 4041, Easy Strength Omni book, for lower body seems mentioned a few times, along with the big jumps with limited weight plates. Yeah, in fact, Oscar, I do prefer the big jumps. And this is the conversation Pavel and I had. We were in either Phoenix or Las Vegas about this. And the idea that both of us had had such success when we had limited plates in our training. I told him the story when I was coaching at Utah State, and all we had were 45-pound plates and 25-pound plates. And he actually thought it was a good idea the way I did it. So, when I had a freshman lifting, we could do 135, we could go 185, but the next jump, man, was 225. That's eye-opening, for the clean and the snatch. So I like that. Would erring on using a given weight for more workouts, same weight for same sets reps, with big jumps possible in the future, or using micro increases, fractional plates, with no big jumps be better in your mind? Basically, is there any difference in strength long-term using big jumps in weight infrequently or small increases almost constantly? Okay, my opinion. I think it's better to have big jumps. I'll go back to the very first workouts I did with Easy Strength. It's back when I lived on Brister Drive, back in that cold garage. And I was trying to build up my incline bench press. And I was using, 165. I then jumped to, for about a week or so, then I jumped to 185. 185 seemed to last like a couple days. I went to 205. And then I jumped to 255, which was my red, green, and yellow plates. And I went from basically, 205 to 255. And I handled it because with Easy Strength, and you're never missing, you're always making the lifts. I'm wired with the ability to do that well. So when I started coaching it, I stayed with that same idea. Big jumps, when the weight just flies out of your hands, you don't want to go up, 2 pounds, 1 kilo. You want to go up. And I found that's better for the way I'm wired up here and physically. There may be some people listening, they're like, yeah, I can't handle that. I need the daily dose of that little bit more, little bit more, little bit more. Most of the people I work with, big engines, performance athletes, big jumps work. I could also understand, there'd be a lot of people who listen and a lot of people who do that fractional improvement would work. I know, Oscar, that's not much of an answer, but the fact that you asked the question, maybe those lighter jumps are good for you. Maybe those constant and never-ending increases in poundage might be the constant and never-ending increases in poundage. Keneep, I guess. That might be the answer for you. I haven't done it. I have never coached it that way, but I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I just haven't done it. Boy, I hope that helps. And would you let me know how this goes, if possible? Because I'd like to hear if it works. And if you do a detailed diary, one of my favorite diets ever online was the engineer's diet, where you had this huge spreadsheet and all these graphs. I love that stuff. I never could do it, but it'd be interesting to see what the fractional approach could do. It is little and often over the long haul, so we know it is going to work. So thank you, okay? Okay, Robert brings us our last question today. Robert says, I know from experience it's not great to slouch or lay down after a training session working the posterior chain, and I always try to walk around or at least sit up straight with good posture after kettlebell workouts with a lot of posterior work. I recently read in one of Pavel's books something to the same effect, the issue he cites being that the stretching of the spinal connective tissue as it cools down post-workout, or something to this effect. I hope I'm not misrepresenting his point. My question is, are isometric hangs from a pull-up bar, or even just regular pull-ups, okay for spinal health after heavy posterior training sessions? Heavy either in load or volume. Is it good or bad practice to do this? It seems like the decompression would be helpful. I'm used to doing pull-ups and dips after a deadlifting session for this reason. I think it's a great idea. But that was back in my 20s when I could simply recover from anything. Are hangs, pull-ups, dips okay after a posterior workout because they decompress the spine? Or should they be done at the beginning of a posterior session? Well, I got to tell you, what you're telling me, I remember back in the early days of the RKC, none of us were allowed to ever slouch. We would all get punished with swings if we did that. But I don't think doing this after a workout is going to give you, some disease or anything. But what I want to talk about is your idea from hanging, because I think you're right. Over there, I've got Tommy Kono's 3 books. And one of the things, and I remember reading this when it came out in Strength and Health, so it's a while ago, a long time ago. Tommy always recommended hanging from a bar after an Olympic lifting session. I also read in a Reader's Digest when I was young that President John F. Kennedy had that tough lower back, and it was recommended to him, though I don't think he did it, that he would hang and then you bring your knees to the chest to get that decompression. Well, Tommy has that in his book too. You hang and he have you turn, lead with your eyes, a little bit of hanging original strength, if you will. You turn with your eyes, and sometimes you get that nice little, that back crack that makes you feel great. Bring your knees to your chest, hold it there. Maybe let your legs, your heels come up, get that backward arch, but you hang and you just let everything dangle. I have found personally for me that hanging does wonders for my shoulders, but it also does wonders for my back. So Robert, I think to cut to the chase on your question, I think hanging after snatches, cleans, deadlifts, whatever, is a great idea. And if you come train with me, you'll see me doing it after every workout too. I don't know, with the spine, I'm Stu McGill, I consider one of the best in the world on this. And one of the things when it comes to spine and spine injuries, you don't want to jump, you don't want to leap to conclusions like that book, that game that we found in Office Space. You don't want to leap to conclusions when it comes to spinal injuries or things like that, because we're all different enough. And I tell you, man, how some people respond to deadlifts with their back issues to others. I had a buddy who got rid of his lower back issues by doing the 10,000 swing challenge. in one day for a fundraiser. He hurt his back prepping for it. And then when he started doing all the swings, it made his back feel better. Listen, that's a story of one person, but it ties into my point that, I think for most people, after they do the snatch, the clean, the deadlift stuff, hanging is a great idea. I'm sure for others, it might not be an idea, but this is where you have to kind of experiment and show some wisdom. Good question, Robert. They were all good questions today. This was a fun week for me. Listen, again, if you have questions, send them to podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. Every week I sit down here and answer your questions, and I really enjoy it. And until next time, let's all keep on lifting and learning. Thanks a lot. We'll see you again next week.